When we agreed to move for dental school, I thought preparing meant finances and logistics, but it was so much deeper than that. I'm a mom of 5, and our family moved so my husband could start dental school. In this video, I want to walk you through how we actually prepared and what mattered most once we were in it. One of the biggest ways that we prepared for dental school was emotionally and mentally. It was something that we had talked about for years and years, always talking about what we would do, how it would look, how we would go about it, what we would want, what we wouldn't. We had talked so much about it that when it actually happened, it was kind of crazy, even though we knew that's what we wanted and we're always striving for. One of the things that we would do in our conversation was talk about sacrifices, what we were willing to sacrifice to make this happen. Obviously, we knew, having 5 children, that they would be sacrificing too. They always knew as well, though, that this was the ultimate goal. It was not something that we just sprung on them last minute. It was almost like something that we manifested as a family that we had always talked about, and they always knew that that was the end goal. So when it came to them, it wasn't a surprise when we were like, hey, okay, we're actually doing this now. It's time. We talked a lot about how our schedule might look, the fact that that would have to change. Obviously, the stress that goes along with it. This is not just a small thing, it is a huge deal. And moving your family to a new city alone is a huge deal. Everybody is sacrificing together. One of the things that I talked to the kids a lot about, though, and that we both did once we actually got the acceptance and started getting closer to the packing day and the move day and all of that, was kind of gently letting the kids know that they were going to see their dad less. The last year before we moved, their dad was working 2 jobs. So he had his regular 8 to 5 job, and then 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes more, he would work at Olive Garden as a waiter. And so they were kind of already used to several nights a week, dad just wouldn't come home at 5 o'clock and he wouldn't be there. They wouldn't see him until they were getting ready for school the next day or whatever. So it was kind of just letting them know, like, it's kind of going to be more of the same. So it was nice that he worked that second job for that reason as well, as that it was already kind of the norm that he wouldn't be home every night for dinner necessarily, or that he would be gone in the evenings when we would have family time if he was there, and then it would just be me and the kids if he wasn't. And then one of the last things that was really important for us preparing mentally and emotionally was the mental load that would become heavier for me. So I knew that obviously if he is home less, that obviously means more is on me. So less time being home means less time for house chores or less time for spending with the kids and filling their emotional needs. So I knew that more was going to be on me just logistically with housework, running the kids to and from, but also more would be required of me emotionally to try to be there for our children, almost extra to kind of make up for their dad not being there as much. The next way that we prepared, which seemed like the biggest obstacle or biggest hurdle for us at times, was the financial side of it. I could not wrap my head around how the student loans and living off of that would be enough. And I will get into those numbers and things in another video, but just these student loans and the numbers that we were getting, they were not going to be enough. So we had to kind of figure out, okay, what are we going to do when it comes to finances? How is that going to work for our family? Obviously, a couple things that we did to prepare was, like I had mentioned before, my husband worked 2 jobs for about 1.5 years to pay things off, to try to put us in the best financial situation that we could be. So obviously he was doing this even before he got accepted. Like I said, this was always the goal. And so to us, it was, we're going to do everything that we possibly can to prepare for this ahead of time, even before he was accepted. One of the big things that I did was start stashing away a little bit of a savings. So for me, it is very important that we do a little something special for the kids' birthday above just getting them a cake and having a dinner. I like to do a little bit of decorations. I like to do a balloon arch if we can. I like to do something to make it a little bit special for them. I knew that it might be tricky when it came down to the wire to have that money to set aside. So I went ahead and saved and planned out for our first 2 years here what each kid would need for their birthday fund. I went ahead and set aside a base of $40 for each kid per year. So generally the fund was like $80 per child. I did have a little bit bigger. We had, shortly after we moved here, we had our youngest's first birthday. So I did have a little bit bigger of a fund for his first birthday because it's the last one that I'm gonna do. So I wanted it to be extra special. But it was really important for me to not even have to worry about that money being there. I stashed it away in envelopes. I did the same thing for Christmas. I got at least half of our Christmas fund money in the envelope, knowing that he would work some at Olive Garden once we were here. He transferred over to be able to work some here as well. And so I knew, okay, I can make up the other half of that once we get there, but I at least had something to go off. So if worse came to worse, I had something. So those things were huge for me, was squirreling away a little bit of money. So at that point, then we really just had logistics and getting down to business. So I started figuring out where the kids were gonna go to school, enrolling them, researching doctors in the area, just trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of transferring our life here, which was huge for me and very scary because I had never done anything like that before. We've always lived in the same place. The kids have always gone to the same schools. And so some reason for me, that was just a big deal. So I definitely have sympathy for families that do this sort of thing all the time because it's a lot. And of course, we had to figure out where we were going to live. A long time before we actually moved, I was looking online, trying to find a place to live. Like I said in the last video, we actually live right across the street from my sister. We had hoped that that would work out that way, but for a little bit there, it didn't look like it was going to happen. And so I was trying to find, okay, where's somewhere that we would want to live? But then it just so happened to work out that a place opened up. And so we got to move in right across the street and we love it here. Another way that we prepared for dental school was trying our best to get some sort of semblance of, okay, how is life going to be and what do we want it to look like when we get there? So it's honestly kind of funny now because things have changed a lot. Again, I'll get to that in a future video, but we naively created what we thought would work schedule-wise, and then kind of some responsibilities too. What our shared responsibilities would be, what his roles would be, what mine would be. Needless to say, they look different now, but we really tried our best to prepare ahead of time so that we had a base. We had somewhere to start. We did tell ourselves, oh, it may change. I think we thought it would change for the better and not for the worse. Not to scare anybody, but it has adjusted for sure. For example, we had a daily schedule, which also included, of course, study time in there. I was going to make sure his scrubs were cleaned every Sunday so that they were ready for the week and ready to go. I was going to cook breakfast for him every morning. Essentially just taking on the role of trying to ease his burden as much as possible, trying to support him as much as I could, really just letting his focus be only on school and doing well in school. For him, I just asked like, hey, please keep up with trash and let's try every Tuesday and Thursday, give me 30 minutes of your time to help kind of pick up and refresh whatever needs to be done. I think it was maybe 2 weeks in, maybe less. Everything kind of just came tumbling down very quick. So I think one time on a Tuesday, he helped with the cleanup and then never again after that. I also, like I said, maybe lasted 2 weeks, maybe not even. And I dropped washing the scrubs, dropped making him breakfast. I was like, I cannot do it anymore. So I think both of us kind of quickly realized what we thought would work was not working. They hit them really, really hard right out the gate with school and workload and study. Everything was so intense right off the bat. And that meant everything was very intense for me right off the bat. And obviously navigating, taking the kids to and from everywhere they need to go. And it's a new city, so I didn't know how to get anywhere. And I had to GPS everywhere I went. And for some reason, it just got to me very quickly. And I kind of had a little bit of a breakdown almost. Like it just was not what I thought. So we very quickly had to change things up, very quickly had to manage our expectations. And what it really came down to was mine was the mental load and his was the workload and the time constraint. So he simply did not have the time to give me those 30 minutes of cleaning twice a week. It just quickly was made known to us that that wasn't going to work. Mine was not a time issue, but it was a mental load issue. I felt like I have so much on my plate, I have to drop some of your stuff. You have to be responsible for that, which if you think about it, it does kind of balance out. If I'm spending the time to make breakfast and wash the scrubs and he's dropping his 30 minutes, it's kind of like, okay, everybody's got their own sort of thing that they're doing rather than trying to do this whole, oh, you help me and I help you. It just did not work. That was where us having more clear roles mattered, and we quickly realized that. So some additional things that I had to take over completely was any odd job around the house or thing that did not get done during the move. Like I said, I just kind of had a breakdown and decided, you know what? If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. So I learned how to kind of do the boy jobs, so to speak, and bucked up and got it done. Our garage was one of those things. It did not get fully organized over the summer, or we moved in July 5th. So we had about 6 weeks to get everything unpacked, settled, organized, last minute things figured out. And it didn't happen. And so I decided, okay, that's it. I'm going to do the garage myself so that I can park in it. And it was me and my oldest on a Saturday, and we got it all done and I could park in the garage. So I didn't love doing that. And I might have had to call my brother-in-law over to kill a spider or two, but it got done. And we were the ones that made it happen instead of waiting for my husband that just simply didn't have the time. Another thing, my daughter wanted some decor hung in her room, and it was really kind of tricky to get it up because it was individual lettering and some frames. Those weren't too hard. And I just felt like I can't do it. But by gosh, I did. And I said, girls can do anything that boys can do. I can hang up this decor. And I did. And I wish that I didn't have to. And so then that's where the mental comes in, like he should be here. He should be doing this. Not that guys have to do all of that stuff, but it just is hard when you feel like, oh my goodness, like everything is on me. So while that was difficult, I did feel a sense of empowerment from doing it. And I felt like, okay, I've got this. So it was important for me to learn those lessons. I would say the biggest takeaway for me this past semester is having a couple systems that really, really work. So one thing that really works for me is having a tight schedule. My kids, everything is very scheduled between pickup and drop-offs, and we have to do a pickup in the middle of the day because I have a preschooler that only goes for a few hours, and then we have balancing nap times and all of that. So everything is, this is when this happens, this is when this person goes down for a nap, this is when they wake up, this is what, everything is planned out to a T, and it just makes it so much easier because it's our routine. Everybody knows exactly what to expect at all times. So that for me is huge, is having that set schedule. Not just for me, but also my husband. His schedule is set. He is gone from 7:30 to about 5:15, 5:30 at school. Then he leaves at 6 after eating dinner with us and spending time with us for about 45 minutes or so. Goes back to school from 6 to 9, 9:30, just kind of depends. But it's set. that is what it is, and everybody knows what to expect. So having tight schedules is definitely something I would recommend. We also, when it comes to the finances and planning, we have monthly budgeting meetings. We go over, I keep a list of every single one of our transactions. We add everything up. We have our Excel sheet. We keep our finances very, very under control, because if you don't, then things can get out of hand really fast. You could run out of money. It just could be a whole mess. So we are very, very strict on our budget. I would say, all in all, the biggest thing that I am glad that we did to prepare was saving money ahead of time. We also had another chunk of savings that we had aside from my little cash envelope savings, and that was huge. It allowed us to get some of the things that we needed for the house and just really act as a emergency fund. And I was able to get new tires when I needed them this semester. And just whatever you do, I say the biggest way that you can prepare is financially, especially as a family living on student loans, because it is no joke. Every family prepares differently, and this is just what worked for us in this season. If you're in a similar place, whether it's dental school or any big transition with kids, I hope this helped you feel a little more grounded. In the next video, I'm sharing things I really wish I had known before we started this journey. Thank you so much for watching.